The Ravens are so good every regular season, but then the playoffs come around. Since becoming the full-time starter in 2019, Lamar Jackson has made the playoffs 4 times. However, he hasn't gotten further than the conference championship, and that was last season. That was Lamar's first time there. So the question is, can the Ravens find any postseason success? Let's go ahead and discuss. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So welcome back to the Deep Dive series where we take a look at each and every NFL team and project how they're going to do in 2024. And today I got your Baltimore Ravens. But before we take a look at the future, of course, relive the past. Baltimore opened the season with a dominant win over the Houston Texans, and then they snuck out a win versus division rival Bengals in Cincinnati. The Ravens would taste defeat in Week 3 in an overtime loss to the Indianapolis Colts, where Justin Tucker missed a 61-yard field goal for the game winner, and Baltimore was unable to convert on 4th and 3 in OT. The Ravens would rebound and their defense would smother DTR and the Browns, and then Baltimore quite literally dropped a game versus the Steelers. Lamar played great, but the pass catchers had 8 drops, including one that should have been a touchdown. After that, they would go on a 4-game win streak and would be 3rd in NFL history for the least amount of time trailing through 10 games. I bring that up because the Ravens would lose to the Browns, where the Ravens had the lead for all but 40 seconds of the game. On top of that, Marlon Humphrey and Ronnie Stanley would go down to injury in that game and miss a few weeks. The Ravens would essentially win out the rest of the season, aside from a loss in the final week, because they had already locked up the 1 seed, so they got to rest their starters. In that final stretch, though, they would pummel playoff teams such as the 49ers and the Dolphins. Lamar won MVP for the 2nd time in his career, and Baltimore not only had a bye in the playoffs, but home field advantage. They would annihilate Offensive Rookie of the Year CJ Stroud and the Texans in the divisional round, but they came up short in the AFC Championship game versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and we don't need to talk about that. Baltimore was phenomenal during the regular season. Despite having the 3rd toughest schedule, their offense was unstoppable as they had the 5th best passing EPA and the 7th best rushing EPA. And the secondary was absolute money as they had the 2nd best pass defense in the NFL. The Ravens had the best point differential in the league, but at the end of the day, all that doesn't matter if you can't win the big one. Real quick, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first-time deposit up to $250. That's right. So if you're gonna go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. The Ravens lost so many significant snaps last season, so let's just go ahead and go through it. As we saw, Josh Simpson, Kevin Zeitler, Patrick Queen, and Geno Smith, who all had over 1,000 snaps, leave this past offseason. Morgan Moses had over 900, Javion Clowney had over 700, you had Gus Edwards, OBJ, Ronald Darby, all those guys had over 500 snaps, and it wasn't just the snaps that they lost, but coaches as well. Mike McDonald, he got a head coaching gig at Seattle. Anthony Weaver took a DC job for my Miami Dolphins, and Denard Wilson also took a DC job for the Tennessee Titans. So yeah, that doesn't feel good. That's a lot. So let's just talk about their additions. So the Ravens didn't do that much this free agency. Yeah. But to be fair, the moves that they did make, I thought were necessary. Let's go ahead and start with their biggest free agent acquisition being Derrick Henry. This is a hand in glove fit. I remember when I did my free agency's prediction, my free agent prediction video last season, I had Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. It just made all the sense in the world. Think about it, this is a team that just lost Gus Edwards. Keenan Mitchell's coming off an ACL injury. So they needed some fire in that backfield. You get them at 2 years, $16 million. That's very reasonable for one of the best, for one of, if not the best running back in the NFL. Yeah, I'm saying put him up there with CMC. I mean, CMC, him and CMC are kind of these exceptions to the running back rule, right? That, oh, you don't pay running backs. Oh, you don't use a high draft pick on running backs. Yeah, they're the exceptions. I think generally the rule is correct. These are the guys you make exceptions for. So Derrick Henry, man, he's still rumbling, man. He's still cranking out 1,000-yard seasons. So this ought to be really fun in Baltimore. They also re-signed Justin Metabuke, which that was kind of a necessary one. He's coming off just a breakout season where he had 64 pressures, 14 sacks. That's via PFF. There's just not a lot of people that can do what he can do in the NFL in terms of just not just being a penetrating 3-tech, but also someone who has enough speed on the interior to be able to kick out on stunts and loops and be that guy that comes around. He just has the speed and the bend to be able to do that. So they give him the money that's well deserved. So he's kind of the big name that they bring back. You got Josh Johnson. He's signed as the backup. They did just lose Tyler Huntley, so that made sense. Bring back Kyle Van Noy, 2 years, $9 million. This man just continues to play good football. Like last season, 48 pressures, 9 sacks. Like the guy is just churning away, man, and just being productive. Like you look at the last few seasons, and it's like teams like the Chargers, the Patriots, the Dolphins. He's just been really good, man. He really, really has. So since they did lose Jadeveon Clowney, it made sense to try to bring him back, and it made sense that they bring him back over Clowney just because it's more cost effective. They signed just Josh Jones. I freaking love Josh Jones. This is my dude. Now, doesn't mean that, hey, he's a surefire starter, but this man's played his best football at left tackle, and so many different teams. Well, I guess the Cardinals and then the Texans, they just throw him at right tackle. When, like, okay, his best games are at left tackle. Don't you want to develop him as a left tackle? And I think that'll happen here in Baltimore. Obviously, he's going to function more as a swing tackle next season, but if injury hits, because with Ronnie Stanley, there's probably a good chance that it will. Josh Jones comes in and plays good football. You probably sign him to a relatively team-friendly deal, and you probably feel good about it. I haven't given up on Josh Jones, but he's on a 1-year deal, so if that doesn't happen, then man, no spilled milk, right? No spilled milk. Chris Board's back with the Ravens, big special teamer, gives them linebacker depth. They bring back Arthur Mallett, who he's an okay slot. He's fine. He's solid. I mean, they do want Kyle Hamilton playing a bit more traditional safety, though they kind of I mean, it's a good enough defensive back room where they can move parts around, but this is a good depth sign-in who's going to be a solid starter, but probably not like long term. And then they bring back Brett Urban. Great. Love it. They do re-sign Malik Harrison, which, I mean, this one's kind of fascinating because with him, like, he's been a cat that they've experimented with, like, as like an edge player a little bit, though. Like he is kind of that hybrid role. I guess he's kind of functioning like what was it, Tyus Bowser? That's kind of how he's functioning, where he's able to like drop back into coverage, but he can come off the edge and blitz. Not saying he's like good at that, but I mean, he's a guy. I mean, more so Kyle Van Noy's kind of that dude, but I mean, Harrison's, I guess, someone you want to continue to develop. Keep in mind, they did draft him back in 2020. But speaking of draft, Hot diggity dog. Let's go ahead and talk about the Ravens draft. So the Ravens started off their draft by taking Nate Wiggins, corner out of Clemson. I get why he falls in the draft just because of concerns with the size. But in terms of speed, playmaking ability, he has that eightfold. I did believe that the Ravens wanted to get a tackle. And I mean, they just saw a ton of tackles go ahead of them. I mean, at pick 30, that's no surprise. But maybe they were in on Wiggins. I think regardless, the Ravens were going to look at who was falling and probably want to make a play on that player. And to be fair, like the Ravens did need more depth at corner. As I mean, you got Marlon Humphrey coming off a bit of a shaky year. I know he wasn't exactly healthy, but still there might be concern with him long term. Someone who could also kick into the slot in terms of actually both Wiggins and Humphrey. Brandon Stevens, he's been relatively solid for this squad, and he's like slowly just getting better and better and better and better. But you're still probably looking for that number one answer. I don't know if he's exactly a number one, like a corner one in the NFL. I think he'd be a solid corner two, which he has been. So, like, the pick made sense. It made sense. It wasn't just a value pick. It was a good pick. And then with their second pick in the draft, second round pick, I should say, at pick 62, they get Roger Rosengarten, who's currently slotted in and projected as the starter at right tackle, which is great. Hey, you don't got to kick him from one side to the other. He's very much a lunch pail type of guy. Comes in, clocks out, does his job, and does it hella effectively. So, I mean, you just lost Morgan Moses. The move made sense. You're going to be kicking Daniel Falele inside the guard. So, Rosengarten, they get that tackle. That tackle that I thought perhaps eluded them in the first round. They were able to snag him at pick 62. I thought it was a little higher than where I had him, but I have him as a third rounder. And I mean, all things considered, were you going to be able to land him at your pick in the third round at 93? Probably not. So I thought it was solid. And then in round 3, they go Adisa Isaac. They get some pass rush. Again, they lost Clowney. You can't rely on David Ojabo at this point to stay healthy. So getting someone that could work in there with Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe is kind of key. I mean, hey, you get another Penn State pass rusher in here. That's hella dope. He's got length. He's got really good explosiveness. How will he hold up against the run? I got my questions, but he's savvy, man. He, like, at the Senior Bowl, he was much better in run drills and in run defense than I had expected. So not to say that it's not there, because quite possibly can be. And then day 3, this is where the value just went out of control. They snagged Tez Walker in round 4. Essentially a potential replacement for like an OBJ. You get a vertical deep threat with a hella good speed. Hopefully the drops are a thing of the past. It's not like this. It's not like back in 2022 at Kent State, drops were an issue for him. And then last year, it's not like his hands were terrible during the season, but it was like, okay, those are more drops than, you'd expect. And then the Senior Bowl was just like drop city. And it was like, golly, what the hell's happening, man? Because like it was a weird year for Tez, man. Initially, the NCAA told him he couldn't play this season. He was ineligible, which was stupid and silly. And eventually they backtracked on that. I guess good for them, or hey, they got bullied. Saw the error of their ways. Whatever it was. Eventually he was allowed to play, and he played well. Like I said, there were a few more drops than you'd expect compared to what he did at Kent State in 2022. But it was like nothing to be like that I was alarmed about. And then that again, the Senior Bowl, man. He was locked up by like I'm blanking on the Notre Dame corner's name now, man. Golly. That's gonna bug me. That's gonna bug me, is what it is. But yeah, man, like, got locked up in press, but he gives you that vertical threat, and he's got some decent after the catch ability. Like, he very quickly turns up field and gets going quickly. So I like the pick of Tez. My favorite pick actually is right here in TJ Tampa. I had him as a like top 50 prospect. He ends up falling to pick 130, and he is every bit of a Ravens corner. Like, you knew this guy was going to be very zone heavy. You like the change of direction and the potential movement skills. He's got size, he's got length. He's going to fit really well in a very quarters heavy scheme, which that's what I think the Ravens are probably going to do. I don't think much is going to change from Mike McDonald's defense last season. But yeah, Tampa was, I thought, a perfect scheme fit. I really, really like him. He's just got to kind of improve the run defense portion of his game. And like, he could potentially vie for a starting position at some point. So love that pick. Love the value. With their 5th round pick 165, they get Rasheen Ali. I thought he was going to take a big dip. He probably should have been more of a 4th round pick, but I think he tore his bicep at the Senior Bowl, so he was unable to really take part in the offseason draft process. When it comes to what he brings to the table, he's very, very good all-around skill set. Legit speed, can make you miss, a little bit of contact balance in there. Fumbles were kind of a big concern during his tenure there at Marshall, but I think he'd be a good complementary back in that backfield. Let's keep it moving. You get Devin Leary. Yay, Devin Leary, who's probably going to vie for that backup position at quarterback. I mean, he's a fine quarterback. I think I had like a 7th round grade on him. Like, other than at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, he's a draftable player, but like, nothing sticks out too well. Like, the arm is fine. There were times where it's like, oh wow, man, this guy could put some velocity on the football, but those times were kind of few and far between. But he's a very, very good at managing the game, operating the short to intermediate. He did it at 2 different schools, being NC State and Kentucky. He did end up being quarterback 13 for me. Yeah, 7th round pick. So it was a solid pick. It was solid. I mean, this is a team that, hey, we need to replenish and look for guys that can back up Lamar just in case he goes down. Get some competition. Get a guy you can develop. Good pickup there. Then we got a couple of 7th round picks here. You got Nick Smack, from center at Michigan State. Oh man, let's take a gander, as he was interior 37 for me. I had a priority UDF priority undrafted free agent. Let's go with that. Grade on him. Let's see what I had to say about him, because again, I don't remember quite much from this past draft. Now that we're done with one draft, I'm already moved on to the next. But he's a guy that I said had solid technique, good movement skills, very smart player in pass protection, but lacks ideal strength, no pop in the hands. He's not going to generate initial push after contact. And this is funny. This is the last thing I wrote about him. I don't think you could draft him. He's going to spend a year or 2 on the practice squad as he gets his play strength up. There's a lot about his game I like, but he can't take the field early. Okay, so practice squad guy. I mean, hey, that's what you do in the 7th round. You take these guys that you don't want to sign elsewhere, that you're going to just throw on the practice squad and develop. Unless like they bring some big special teams upside. Though I do want to talk about their final pick here, pick 250, in Sanusi Kane, safety out of Purdue. He was a guy that I watched late in the process. Let me just pull up his profile here. He was safety 26 for me, and I just like it, man. 5'11", 207. Ends up running 4.52. The explosive numbers were impressive. 36.5-inch vert. He had a 128-inch broad jump. The agility scores were really good as well. He had 7 pass breakups last year for Purdue, a guy that worked both mainly in the slot and in the box, but someone you're going to have to work with when it comes to play strength. So they take a couple of guys that need to work on their play strength that are going to sit on the practice squad, but he does got special teams, a lot of special teams experience during the course of his career. A relatively young player. He's going to be 22 entering his season, where it's like, oh, that's not that young. That's pretty young for a 7th round pick. But when it comes to this coaching staff, we kind of already talked about defensively. This coaching staff lost a lot, but I think they're going to be in good hands here with Zach Orr. If you're unfamiliar with Zach Orr, he was formerly a Ravens linebacker. He was a UDFA out of North Texas and ended up soon becoming a starter and a Pro Bowler. But the year he made the Pro Bowl, this is where his career gets cut short because of a spine or neck injury. Does try to make a comeback, decides no, it's not worth it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start my coaching journey in 2017. He was a defensive analyst for the Ravens, spent a few years there, had a 1-year stint as the Jaguars inside linebacker coach, comes back to Baltimore. He's their inside linebackers coach, and now he's been promoted to DC. And I don't think we're going to see much of a difference in terms of defense, because both as a player and as a coach, he's been with Mike McDonald. So I don't think we're going to see much of a change. I think it's going to be all right. No, we're going to just continue with what worked last year. And I mean, that's why all these coaches from Baltimore were so like sought after, because what you did, it worked hella well. Let's bring that over to different rosters. I'm talking like Titans, Dolphins, fins up, baby, by the way. You got Seahawks. So yeah, it makes sense that they're going to stick with what they did. What they did do, they were a 3-4 defense, played a lot of match quarters coverage. When it came to blitzing, they were more surgical, and like the blitz rate's not high, as last year was 25th in the league at 21.9%. But in certain situations, in particularly third down, that's when they unleashed the hounds. They were sixth. I believe they were sixth in their blitz rate on third down. So, like, not afraid to get after it, but they know when to get after it. But for the most part, they're hoping to win with 4 guys, with their defensive line. And they will utilize stunts. They will try to scheme up pressure, but at the same time, the Ravens have been coached well. These players along the defensive line know how to win independently. So I think they're just going to stay the course, and good on them for that. There's still some good defensive coaches on this roster, so I'm not going to pretend like they did lose a lot, but I'm not going to pretend like now it's like a barren wasteland, because it certainly isn't. When it comes to I guess let's first talk about John Harbaugh, because he kind of functions as a CEO type of head coach. He's a former special teams coach, DB coach for the Eagles, spent 9 years under Andy Reid's tutelage, and he's done a phenomenal job. He's one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL. He was hired back in 2008. He's done a wonderful job. He brought in Todd Monken last season, and you know what? Good on him for that. I said it earlier in the video. They had the 5th best passing EPA. They had the 7th best rushing EPA. This offense, it worked, and it worked effectively. I don't know if people were like, oh man, this is a guy coming from the college ranks, former Georgia OC and quarterbacks coach. But like, no, Monken, if you weren't familiar with him before, he's a guy that had a lot of experience in the NFL, being a former OC with teams such as the Bucks and the Browns. So it's not surprising that he was able to come in and adapt some of the things that worked in Georgia last season and do it well. But that's not to say that he changed everything, because he did keep in place, or at least utilized a similar scheme when it came to the run blocking. There were a lot of power, a lot of counters. And that was something Greg Roman did. So I feel like he came in and was like, all right, we're not going to tweak the things that work, but we're gonna get this passing game put on the map. I'm gonna let Lamar throw, and he did a good job of that. So typically, what we saw was a lot of 11 personnel. Even when they went to like 12 personnel, it was more like 21 personnel, because it was like Patrick, Richard was coming in as a blocker. But I mean, they liked getting Isaiah Likely on the field as well. But they did like having 3 wide receivers out wide there. You saw a lot of RPOs. You saw him utilize the screen quite a bit last season, and not really necessarily to success, but he just made it, used it as a mechanic to kind of slow down the pass rush. Because the Ravens weren't that good against the blitz last season. A lot of that was because of injuries and such, but he was able to effectively scheme off pressure, scheme off blitzes. So like he was hella good. He's done a really, really good job here. So let's talk about some of the other coaches on the staff here as we get to it. You got Chris Horton. He's been with this team since I think like 2014. He's in his 6th year as special team coordinator. Hell yeah. You got Chris Hewitt. I think this is his 1st year as an assistant head coach, but he's been a pass game coordinator for the defense for a few years now. I think because he's another guy that they've elevated through their system, because I think he started initially as a defensive backs coach or a secondary coach. We got, where are you at? Here we go. My boy, George Godsey. He's the tight ends coach. I think this is his 3rd season as that. He's a former Dolphins offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator. Fins up, baby, fins up. But he does a hell of a good job. You also got Sam Koch. Hey, dude, he went from consultant last season. Now he's an assistant special teams coach. Hell yeah, good job there. Greg Lewis, former Eagles receiver. I don't know. I'm sorry. When I watched him, I was a child. But he spent quite a bit as the wide receivers coach in Kansas City. I think he's been here the last couple of seasons. T. Martin, hell of a good coach. No, I guess Greg Lewis has been here about 2 years, because T. Martin was initially the wide receivers coach. The last 2 years, he's been the quarterbacks coach. But a guy very highly renowned around the league for some of the wide receivers he's been able to develop. He's done a good job with Lamar the last couple of years. Chuck Smith, this is someone who feels like they might be in line for a DC role someday, as he's the pass rush coach, and he's done a really good job developing these guys, regardless of who's in the room, who do they have rushing the passer. You look what he's done with guys like Adabuke. Oweh's coming off a solid season. So, yeah, Travis Jones kind of lit it up late last year. So, he's done a really good job as the pass rush coach. He's formerly, I think, the outside linebackers coach or D-line coach. I can't recall. Regardless, he was dealing with the pass rush. Hey, Will Taggart. He's back here as the running backs coach. Hell yeah. After a not so great college football coaching career, or at least how it ended with like Florida State and Oregon. Travis Switzer, he's the run game coordinator. This is his 1st year as a run game coordinator. Prior to that, I think he was an offensive line coach or an assistant to the offensive line coach. I do remember him being a a camp invite back in the day. I think he was coming out of Akron or something like that. But immediately was like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to bounce around as maybe a practice squad player. Let's just get my coaching journey started. So you got a very young coach here that's now expanded his role. So that's just cool to see. Thought I'd point that out there. But yeah, I feel like it's time to get to this roster. As per usual, you'll see my grades for each position group over here. Let's start at quarterback with Lamar Jackson. He is one of the most terrible players to have to game plan for if you're a DC, because he's that good. He is a threat with his feet, and last year his arm was nutty because the chains were off. Now, that's not to say it was perfect, but he was hella good. Even when under pressure, it was comparable to when he was left in a clean pocket. You might be like, but no, it just means he was very good at both. Very, very good at both when under pressure and when kept clean. Typically, you hear, oh, he's better under pressure than kept clean, so he can't work inside a structure. No, Lamar did both exceptionally well. You look at his, the biggest improvement, I think, in general is the intermediate passing game, where he had a 77.3% adjusted completion percentage. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of drops came from his wide receivers. I do want to see I feel like downfield, they missed a couple of shots. He only had a 36.8%, completion rate downfield, though didn't nearly take as many shots downfield as you'd expect. And I mean, I feel like OBJ's health played a little bit of part in that, as he had the ankle and the shoulder injury. So I don't know, maybe they can unlock that with Devontae Walker, or get Zay Jones playing deep. I mean, he was a very good vertical player there for Boston College. But Lamar was hella good, man. There isn't much more to say. Behind him will be one of the best running backs in football, despite being on the wrong side of 30 at this point. He is 30. I think he turned 30 just last month. Congratulations. Happy birthday, Derrick Henry. But he's still hella good, hella effective. And the running back room's actually, especially if Keaton Mitchell makes it back sometime early this season. I don't know if he's going to be put on IR to start the year, like 4-week IR, but we'll see. He's currently on the PUP. But let's take a quick look at the depth at running back, because there's a couple of guys I want to talk about real quick. As Justice Hill has kind of been just Mr. Reliable here for the Ravens. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's not like he's been like freaking a phenomenal or just amazing, but like, he's reliable. He can break off the big run here and there. What he does in the passing game, hella good. Had 251 receiving yards last season. Very solid. He's going to be a good complementary back while Mitchell gets healthy. Like, let's not sleep on Justice Hill, man. Let's not sleep on Justice Hill. And like, let's go back to Derrick Henry. Like, people think he's declining, which is fair. He will be slowing down. That's just how it works. Especially a guy with how many carries this man has in his career? Close to 2,500. If we're gonna take receptions, if we're gonna include receptions, he's over that 25. He's at 2,600 touches over his career. That's a lot of mileage. It's a lot of tread off the tires, but he's still uber productive. Yards after contact, 3.32, which that's actually pretty good in comparison to most of the NFL. It's not like he's been a big yards after contact. He's typically gonna get his 2 to 3 to 4 yards after initial contact, but He's still hella good in that, man. He's still hella good. You want that number above 3? It is still well above 3. We talked about Justice Hill. We got Keaton Mitchell here, who was on his way to having a hell of a season until the ACL injury, and like almost knew it immediately. I was talking about how Derrick Henry's 3.32. It's pretty solid yards after contact. Keaton Mitchell, 5.68. Granted, that was on 47 carries, but still, this man was ripping it. Like 12 of his 47 carries were for 10 plus yards. He's this big play threat. He really is. So, like, get well soon, man. I can't wait to see it back. I talked a little bit about Rasheen Ali. Owen Wright, I think he was a UDFA out of Monmouth a year ago. He's fine. I think he only makes the squad if Mitchell's not good to go and they want to keep a 4th running back, but I don't think they will. I think they'll probably just keep the 3. So, and it depends how ready Ali is. I haven't really noticed. Haven't seen any training camp news about him yet, but he should be on. Honestly, he should be on time because bicep is about I think it's about 6 months. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but regardless, I mean, he's gonna be a complimentary back even when healthy. Chris Collier, didn't watch him. Fun fact, where's this guy from? Last Haven or something? Lock Haven. I said Last Haven. Fun fact, I couldn't get Lock Haven tape. Not that I tried. He wasn't on my radar, unfortunately, but hey, you like to see these guys come in and camp and compete. Maybe you could get a practice squad spot. Never been the biggest John Kelly guy. That's just not my cup of tea. But let's talk these receivers. You'll notice my grade for the weapons isn't that high. It's a C, so like middle of the pack. And some of that has to do with injury, as you have some of the non-wide receiver pass catchers like Keaton Mitchell coming off the ACL. Mark Andrews had the ankle injury last season. Did make it back for the AFC Championship game, but wasn't really a factor in that. So you're hoping he's fully recovered at this point. Zay Flowers, man. Zay Flowers looked hella good last season. He probably will be the premier pass catcher here. Though, again, like Andrews is also very, he's one of Lamar's favorite weapons. So it should go probably Zay Flowers, Lamar. Rashad Bateman, man, will you ever just break out, my dude? I loved you coming out of Minnesota, and it just hasn't been it, my dude. Last season, when it came to the drops, the drippity drops, 10%. Not great, but let's not pretend like other parts of this team didn't struggle. You had Isaiah Likely, 10.5%, or 10.5% drop rate. Mark Andrews, 7.8% drop rate. He had a 3-drop game. It was that Steelers game they ended up losing. Even Zay Flowers, he was at 7.5%. So I want to see these receivers' hands get more consistent. Please, can you do that for me? But the force missed tackle, Zay Flowers was a monster after the catch, 21 force missed tackles. You love to see it. Isaiah Likely also did a very good job at that, 12 force missed tackles. He was second on the team. But Rashad Bateman, I know that the Ravens, they're vocal about still having hope in him, that this is the best he's looked this offseason. Hopefully that's the case. He was a player I really liked coming out of the draft. Nelson Aguilar, man, he was kind of he was the dude that stepped up when OBJ went down. Did a really good job of that. It was kind of funny because Demarcus Robinson was kind of in a similar spot with the Rams last year. And if you could just prove, hey, I can be this reliable hand, reliable hand for the team. And if injury happens, I could step up my game. And he's back with the squad. He's probably going to be functioning a lot out of the slot. That's where he was 71.8% of the time last season. So cool, fun. Devontae Walker, again, I kind of feel like he's going to be the vertical threat, the OBJ. That's how they're going to utilize him. So we'll see with that. Let me switch over here for y'all real quick, guys. There we go. Tylan Wallace is back with the team, but he's really more of a special teamer at this point, return man. Though Deontay Hardy, he is added to the squad, and he's probably going to compete for return opportunities. Russell Gage, this is an interesting addition because I think there's a chance he probably makes the squad as the backup slot receiver. We'll see. We'll find out because Deontay Hardy, I'm not sold that he actually sticks to the roster if they keep 6 wide receivers in general. You got Keith Kirkwood. I remember his days in New Orleans. It's really a guy here. Malik Cunningham, former Louisville quarterback, turned to wide receiver. He's probably going to be heading to the practice squad. I think that just makes the most sense to continue to develop him as a wide receiver. Isaiah Washington, I believe, was the small slot out of Illinois. No, Rutgers. Who was I thinking of? Was it like Isaiah Williams? Oh, it is what it is. Couldn't tell you much. I didn't watch Isaiah Washington. Dayton Wade, though, played for Ole Miss last season. He was aight, but long shot to make the roster. Anthony Miller, still kicking around the league. Probably not for long, though, unfortunately. I talked about Isaiah Likely. He gives you a little bit more. He stretches the field a little bit more than Mark Andrews. Andrews, though, is just, he's got the consistency when it comes to his hands. Charlie Collar is probably one of the better tight end 3s around the league. They probably just keep 3 tight ends, though could be interested if they hold on to like a Scotty Washington, a wide receiver turned tight end, former Wake Forest wide receiver at that. Mike Riggerman, I believe, was the Finlay tight end. Couldn't tell you much about him, let alone some of the other guys they've brought in here to compete at tight end. Let's talk about the offensive line. This is who I got listed as the starters, guys that I think will be taking the most snaps. We're going to start with Ronnie Stanley. He ain't what he once was, but he's still not half bad. He's still particularly solid run mauler, very good pass protector still. He had like one goof of a game. I think it was probably against the Browns, because that makes sense. Myles Garrett will do that to you, but he's still pretty solid, pretty dependable. On the opposite side, I mentioned Rosengarten earlier in the video, as he's kind of the lead candidate here. If another guy was going to win that right tackle spot, I don't think it would be Josh Jones, because he's just never good when he plays right tackle. It would probably be Patrick McCarry, who's a very reliable player that can play all over the offensive line. So you love to see it. Kick into the interior. First, Linderbaum, man. Linderbaum's trending in a way where he will soon be one of the best tight ends. Well, he's already one of the best tight ends, centers in football, but he could be competing with Creed Humphrey fairly soon. He was that good last season in all facets of the game. Andrew Voorhees. This is my dude. I loved him coming out of USC. Thought he would have been a day 2 pick. Fortunately, had the, I think it was an ACL. He had the ACL, the knee injury. Yeah, ACL injury at the combine. But this man is such a Chad that he did the bench a day after tearing his ACL. And he did hella good. He's a baller. He spent all last season healing. That was the only reason he wasn't a higher draft pick. This year, I think he's ready to start. I'm very excited. I was a big fan of Voorhees. Currently, Daniel Falele is listed as the starter here on the interior. It's a bit fascinating. Last season, I think he got a good amount of reps at right tackle. Not as much as I nearly thought. Didn't really look all that good either, allowing 10 pressures and 3 sacks on 103 pass blocking snaps. What you doing, my dude? What you doing? I don't know. Maybe the move to guard will be better for him. We'll find out, but I do think this is probably where the camp battle will be. This is probably the most hotly contested position among the starters on offense. Let's run through it as you got, don't butcher it, Salah. Oh, I already forgot how to say it. I'm just going to call him Salah. So Salah basically was a healthy scratch for most of the season after losing the job to Josh Simpson. Though you could tell he's someone that they believe in. He was there. He was like up there when it came to Simpson in the camp battle last season. So don't count him out. I think there's a good chance that there still might be something there, that he might end up at one point starting at right guard this season. When it comes to the other guard spot behind Voorhees, you got Ben Cleveland, someone who I'm kind of on the verge of giving up on. It's unfortunate. He was actually fairly solid in 170 snaps last season. But I think he's just kind of run his course, unfortunately. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to start somewhere else. You love the look of the man, the build. He just looks like a man's man at guard. He's just been unable for the last 4 years. It has been, do something, I'm giving up on you type of feels when it comes to Ben Cleveland. So maybe he just needs a new scenery. Currently they got Nick Samak as the backup center, which is fair because, golly, the position here is a bit desolate. You got Dalcourt, who's former Alabama guard, so that'll be fascinating. I don't know how that'll roll, but I suppose we'll see. Then again, okay, Makari can play center. So I still think our friend Nick here ends up being a practice squad body. I kind of talked a little bit about Josh Simpson or Josh Jones. He's gonna function as a swing tackle, but he does provide depth if Stanley goes down. Julian Pearl, he's got length, he's got movement skills. The play wasn't good last year at Illinois. He's a practice squad player. And for the most part, they just got a ton of young guys. Really nothing too noteworthy as of right now. There will be a competition here at backup quarterback, but regardless, whoever ends up the backup, the other will be the emergency backup. Emory Jones, I feel like you should be switching positions fairly soon. We'll see about that. But that's the offense, man. I got an A overall with this squad. There's some questions on the offensive line. Rosengarten, Valele, Voorhees. I think that's fair. You're questioning 3 out of the 5 spots, so we'll see. We'll find out. Can this team attack vertically a little bit better? And will some of the will a guy like Keenan Mitchell be healthy by the start of the year? Because he gives them a lot. He truly does. But let's go ahead. Let's move to the defense. When it comes to the defense, this is who I think is going to lead the team in snaps. Who's going to be on the field the most? That's going to dictate how this team does. Let's go ahead and start with the defensive line. As essentially these are who were the starters last season. And they were very, very good. In Odafe Owe, he had a 18.2% pass rush win rate. Very, very good. You had Kyle Van Noy, 14.7% pass rush win rate. Very good. Justin Matabuke at 14% for the interior. That's solid. And then Michael Pierce with 11.2% in terms of his pass rush win rate along the interior. I know health in the past has been a concern with Michael Pierce, But I mean, I thought Travis Jones did a good job stepping up in that role. He had a 9.1% pass rush win rate. So like, it's a solid defensive line, man. I think they're going to be able to get after it and get after it well. It is important to note, like, blitzing was a big part, mainly on third down and particularly on third down. But when they did, they really trusted that pressure to come from like a Patrick Queen. He had 24 pressures, 4 sacks last season. I honestly think that's the Trent Simpson role. I think that's what Trent Simpson's going to do. He showed a little bit of that pass rush ability there at linebacker there at Clemson. He really did. He's a wonderful athlete. And this year is going to be a really big litmus test to see how much faith they have in him. Will he be the starter all this season? How will he do? I'm very, very excited. And I mean, we could talk about Roquan Smith, one of the best linebackers in football. Still doing it, and doing it well. He was pretty effective as a pass rusher as well. Not nearly as effective as Patrick Queen, but still solid in his own right. 13 pressures, 2 sacks. In coverage, allowed a completion rate of 77%. That's average, about average for the linebacker position, but 7 pass breakups, had an interception. Love to see it. His stops on the year are 47 defensive stops. That just essentially stops that result in either no gain or a negative gain. He was pretty darn good at that. Let's just go ahead, take a look at this front 7 altogether and see what they're working with. How's the depth? Because they did lose parts. They traded Patrick Queen, right? Traded? No, they just didn't re-sign him. They lost Javion Clowney. So it's like, yeah, let's take a look at some of these parts. And we're going to start with that defensive line. Broderick Washington. I know the cat doesn't see like a ton of snaps. Well, I mean, he had 400 snaps last year. But he's a pretty solid pass rushing threat for them. And that's probably the only time you're going to see him on the field. Uh-oh. Ravens news right now. Mark Andrews was involved in a car accident this morning. He was evaluated by the team and is expected to return to practice in the coming days. Okay. Big nothing burger. Now you know I'm recording this on Wednesday. But yeah, so you got Washington as a pass rushing threat there. Brent Urban is pretty darn solid, more all around than Washington. But again, good depth to have on the squad. Josh Tupou, not bad, man. I liked him at Cincinnati as a depth player, and I like him here, man. I like him here. No, probably not going to see a lot of playing time if he's on the squad, but I don't mind him. Matter of fact, I'll get to it when I get to it, but looking at some of the other guys there, like I previously mentioned, Malik Harrison has been listed as essentially a pass rusher, but again, he's kind of got that Kyle Van Noy-esque about him where he can play in coverage. You got David Ojabo. Can the man stay healthy? It's just unfortunate, man. It felt like it's just kind of been all downhill since his pro day workout, where he had the, I can't remember specifically, I think it was an ACL as well, but I just want to see this guy healthy because, like, he's got a lot of talent. And I'm kind of curious actually what that explosiveness will look like now. We also got Tavius Robinson. I thought he was a bit of a reach in the 4th round there in 2023 coming out of Ole Miss. He did play 335 snaps last year and didn't do a ton. Like, wasn't that good as a pass rusher. 9 pressures, 1 sack. So, don't love it. Not too familiar with guys like CJ Ravenel and Tremel Waltower. Oh my gosh, those are some names. Dedrin Sanat, more of a big body run stuffer. Probably a long shot to make the team. He could sneak in here. It's probably going to be him or Tupou. When it comes to the linebacker, I kind of mentioned Trent McDuffie. Wow. Trenton Simpson is probably going to be that blitzing threat. Though we've seen positive things from Josh Ross this camp. He had a pretty solid preseason game as well. So I'm intrigued. My curiosity is struck. Chris Board's more of a special teams guy. You got Yavandi Rigby. He was the other Temple linebacker there with Jordan McGee. He's fine. Launched out to make the squad. Not familiar with Deion Jennings. At least I don't think I am. Coming out of Rutgers. Yeah, not familiar with, so I couldn't tell you much about him. Let's go ahead. Let's move to the secondary because it's interesting. So initially I had Arthur Mallett as the starter in the slot, which again, it was tough, but it sounds like he's going to miss regular season time as he's getting a scope on his knee? Yep, on his knee. And they say he will miss some regular season time. Well, you know what? Freaking I know the Ravens, they love moving Kyle Hamilton around, but he is literally at his best when he's in the slot. And I think he's probably going to lead the team in snaps from the slot here. So my only other question was, okay, then who's playing next to Marcus Williams? Which comes down between Eddie Jackson, who, yeah, he's lost a step or two, but he's still below 30. He's 29. And he's just a year removed from like a 4-interception season. I still think that playmaker's in there. So I leaned with the vet because, I mean, he played more snaps last season anyway than Ardarius Washington, though I am a stan for Ardarius Washington. Had a good game too in the preseason. When it comes to which it kind of made it easy at corner. I think as long as Marlon Humphrey's healthy, he's going to lead the team in snaps from the corner position. And you got Brandon Stevens, who's become a very solid corner 2 in the league. But you got to expect that Nate Wiggins is going to be very involved at some point. So, like, I don't know how he fits in to, like, I guess they'll start in lineup or in terms of snaps. But I feel like this team will probably go with a lot of sub formations. And they'll make sure he finds his time on the field, man, because he's hella good. He had 3 pass breakups in the preseason in his opening game, and that was like 41 total snaps. Like, impressive, man. This guy's got ball skills, man. You gotta watch out. But let's look at the depth in the secondary. Let's start at safety. Marcus Williams. Another guy, can he stay healthy, man? He's been banged up last couple of years. And last year for him, it was the pectoral, and he also had a hamstring injury. So, like, can he stay healthy? But I still feel like they're fine with guys like Eddie Jackson and Ardarius Washington actually playing more deep. And I know when it comes to quarters coverage, deep's a little bit different. It's not like you're tasked with like a middle third. But I mean, in too high, you get a little quadrant, like solid, but I still think his best work's underneath, man. Still think his best work is underneath because he does take a little bit to get going sometimes. Like the short area quicks are solid with him, but I just don't see that long speed with him. But again, in quarters coverage, you're typically fine. You can hide the absence of long speed. I talked about Sanusi Kane, and they also got Bo Braid, man. He ended up being a UDFA. Wasn't a big Bo Braid guy last year, man. Wasn't a big Bo Braid guy. Just kind of felt like he was a thumper at safety, and that was about it. Daryl Worley, I think this is like year 2 of him being a safety. Probably launch out to make the squad, if anything, like Kane and Braid. They're your practice squad players. Okay, when it comes to Mallett last year, he literally played like exclusively slot for the Ravens last season, which he ended up being. Let me just filter this sucker out real quick. Ended up allowing a completion rate of 60%. That's pretty fine for the slot. 2 pass breakups, interception, allowed only 1 tutty. I like it. If his missed tackle rate was, better, then I'd probably like it a little bit better, like 20.5. That's not great. But he when healthy, he's probably going to be the starter there in the slot. You got Demarion Williams, undersized player out of Houston. Hasn't really been given a shot to go. A lot of that has been injury, had an ankle injury last season. They do have you got TJ Tampa. I'm a big fan. I mean, Jalen Amore Davis. Like, they got players back there. Jalen Amore Davis ended up playing only 28 snaps. Was he hurt as well? Yep, concussion. Okay. That's a little surprising that he didn't play a ton of snaps, but it kind of is what it is. They did have Darby. They did have Rocky Sin, so probably got buried on the depth chart. But now, like, even with TJ Tampa here, it's like, golly, dude, there's a lot of players to potentially keep, and I just don't think Williams makes the squad. Like, just being able to play in the slot isn't good enough to make this team. Bump Cooper Jr., former Oregon State corner. Again, kind of more of a slot-only build. Probably ends up on the practice squad. Oh, man, I didn't know Trayvon Mullen was still here. Golly. Okay, well, he had a toe injury that kept him out last season. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys just look like long shots to make the roster. I think they're probably keeping, you got Humphrey, Stevens, Mallett, Wiggins, Armour Davis, and Tampa. Those are probably they keep those 6, and they keep 4 safeties in Jackson, Washington, Hamilton, and Williams. But you get a lot of variety in that backfield. I mean, there's honestly, Ronald Darby, not that big of a hit. Like, Nate Wiggins is really showing, oh, okay, no, this cat can play. So, hey, we got Stevens, we got Humphrey, and we got Wiggins. Hell yeah. Let's do it. So, yeah, I expect the secondary to still be hella good. I got a A- grade for them in terms of coverage. Think it's solid. Think it's great. I do have questions when it comes to coverage with Trenton Simpson. But Roquan Smith, a guy that you'll hardly find at a position, will continuously make plays on would-be pass catchers, and very much a minimal gain guy. Hey, you may catch it underneath on me like for 4 or 6 yards, but those are the only yards you're going to get. No after the catch. And you just love it. So the defense is hella good. Let's go ahead and talk about how this team will do in 2024. So the Ravens last season had the 3rd toughest schedule among the league. And you know what? It's going to be tough again. I got them ranked with the 8th most difficult schedule. But let's go ahead and project this team's ceiling. As honestly, they opened the year on... It's kind of a tough run up until week 6. So they opened the year in Kansas City. We're projecting the ceiling here. This was a decent road team. The Chiefs kind of stumbled out of the blocks last season. I'm willing to give them this win. I'm willing to give them that win. Ravens will be taking on the Raiders. Raiders, again, this is a new year, new Raiders, man. Antonio Pierce here as the new head coach. There's a different feel about the Raiders, but I still think the Ravens are a better squad. This Dallas Cowboys game will be a bit interesting. Cowboys do have a knack of not beating winning teams. Very similar to the Dolphins. Not nearly as bad as the Dolphins, but I feel like Dallas could come away with this. Like, this is the thing. If I'm going to give this game to the Ravens, I'm not going to give them the win against the Bills. I don't think they come out of this unscathed. I think they're either losing between... They're at least going to come out with 1 loss, whether that be Dallas, Buffalo. You could even make a case for Kansas City, even the Raiders. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give the Cowboys the win there, and I'll give you all a win in Baltimore against the Bills. I think that we're going to see a very split division when it comes to their games against the Steelers, Bengals, Browns. I mean, last year Last year, they were able to, they split with the Browns. When it came to the Bengals, they swept the Bengals, but I believe that second game was no Joe Burrow. I'm not positive, don't quote me on that, but I think the Bengals will be a better team this year, especially if they can stay healthy. When it comes to the Steelers, like, you got swept by the Steelers, but that last game of the season, you were resting your starters. So you probably split with the Steelers. So I think it's fair to say you split the division 3-3. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Bengals win at home, and we'll go ahead and give Baltimore the home win against the Bengals when that comes up. I think Washington's going to be a bit, not pants, but they're just kind of starting their rebuild, and new head coach, new quarterback, like, give them some time. This Tampa Bay one's very intriguing. I'm going to lean with the Ravens, though. Again, we're kind of projecting the ceiling for the Ravens. And then, again, I'm going to give the Browns the home win. Then again, man, the Browns literally led for all of 40 seconds in that second meeting and won. It was so stupid. Yeah, you know what? I think they can sweep the Browns, but I think I'm going to stay put on this. I think I'll stay put on it. I think they beat the Broncos, give them the home win over the Bengals here. We're going to give the Steelers the home win. I think they take out the Chargers. Again, you're dealing with the team with the new head coach, not so new quarterback, but still, I think there are going to be some lumps and bumps. I think heading into your bye, you take out the Eagles, man. You get that one at home. Yeah, I'm going to give that to y'all. Coming out of the bye, you get the Giants, which essentially is 2 byes at that point. Giving you the home win here against the Steelers. Remember, I'm giving the home win against the Browns as well. And I like the Texans. I just don't think they're there yet, at least when it comes to a team like the Ravens. I mean, we saw that twice last year. We literally saw them, the Texans and CJ Stroud, take on the Ravens at the beginning of the year. And then we saw it at the very end of Houston's season. And it looked very similar. So we're just going to go with that. Again, we're projecting the ceiling for the Ravens at this point. Puts them at 13 wins. Fun fact, that's what they had last year. They were 13-4. Getting 13 wins in the NFL, especially with this schedule, that's really tough. It's really tough. So when it comes to my projection, I have them at 12-5, but still that feels high just because, again, the schedule's tough. But hey, y'all had the third most difficult schedule and had 13 wins last year. 13 wins are hard to get, so I dropped it to 12. But, I mean, this is a winning team, man. This is one of the best teams in football. When it comes to the coaching staff, I have a lot of faith, a lot of confidence when it comes to the roster. Like, honestly, I thought for as much as they lost, I'd have more questions than I actually do. Like, I actually feel very encouraged with the depth that this team's been able to build. So I think 12-5 is a fair assessment. You let me know, Ravens fans, what you think in the comment section below. If you want to check out maybe some of my other deep dives on teams like, I don't know, the Browns, the Steelers, you can check out that sucker right here. Or I've been doing my summer scouting for the 2025 NFL draft class. So you can take a look at that video right there. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.